I'm Saskia Nowicki. I am a research associate in the School of Geography and the Environment at the University of Oxford. And I work on water quality and system science, so trying to find ways for more wholesome water in the world for humans and for ecosystem health as well. Most of my work, in-depth work, has been with partners in Kitui County in Kenya, working on improving access to safe drinking water. And I've also had a lot of opportunity to work with colleagues in Ethiopia and Bangladesh as well on similar challenges through the REACH water security program. There are a lot of obstacles depending on the way you look at it, but I think what I would maybe bring forward as a key one is about mindsets and the different ways that people approach or think about wholesome water and equity around wholesome water. So I think it's really a systemic challenge. Some of the inequalities that we're facing in terms of what people are exposed to in the environment and through water are really, really deeply entrenched in system structures that have long legacies and are very difficult to change, especially if you can't even see them. So I think one of the biggest obstacles is mindsets around actually what would progress even look like that will be meaningful and lasting and sustainable rather than kind of band-aid solutions. I think it comes back to this understanding that these challenges are systemic, and so to overcome them, we need to be using systems thinking. We need to be working in ways that actually appreciate the social ecological complexity of the systems that essentially we're trying to shape and change the outcomes of very complex systems. And so to do that, we need many different perspectives. There's no one individual or one organization that can really understand systemic complexity in its entirety. So even within the water sector, we kind of have this idea that there is a water sector and this is our business, but that is a really artificial boundary. Water is everybody's business, and so we need to be working in ways that are collaborative, that are bringing in very different perspectives, and enabling us to see the wider complexity of what we're doing. And kind of navigate a path through that. So I think there's a lot of need for collaboration, for negotiation, for trying to come to more of a common understanding, and even finding more of a common language to be able to speak to each other across our different training, our different lived experiences, our different jobs and silos that we work in. So I really think that that is where meaningful change has to come from, but it's obviously difficult to find ways to do that, and it's not necessarily a very fast process. So there needs to be also an understanding of making time and space to connect properly with people. SDG6 is very ambitious. I think we all recognize. It's coming from a place of human rights, of aspiration, of ethics, what people ought to have universal access to safe water, but then what do we even mean by safe water and how we define that is really difficult. So the way that progress towards SDG6 is being tracked it has a whole bunch of built-in assumptions around how we're defining what safe water is, what good access is. And so in a sense, I think it's good that we have that goal because it is something that we can kind of anchor ourselves to as an agreement at a very high level that this is important, and that maybe we can use it as a tool to bring people to the table and have those negotiations and connections. But as a sort of target in and of itself, as an idea that this is kind of a finish line at the end of a marathon that we're going to break through the banner and it's going to be, woo, it's done. I don't think that that's a helpful way to actually think about it, because it is a continual process, and it's something that we will always need to be working on and ensuring So you asked me about Kitui specifically. I think it's very unlikely that everybody in Kitui will have access to safe water, even as it is defined in the quite limited way that it is defined for the SDG by 2030. But we can't use that, let that discourage us from working to improve, to continually improve towards more wholesome water for everybody in Kitui. So I suppose that's how I see it. I think a big shift that's happening right now, which you could maybe think of as a key step, is moving in how we're thinking about water service delivery from this idea of building infrastructure and not having very much plan of what happens to that infrastructure later, towards this idea of water as a service. And so building institutions, ways of working that have service delivery as the kind of intention, I think is really the next step, or it's really important. So within that, I think there's a lot of focus on keeping main infrastructure running, keeping it working in the first place. And then there's a space that then opens up for also looking at the wholesomeness of the water that is being supplied. So more capacity to monitor, to measure that water, to have a sense of the quality and what might be done to address hazards when they are identified, to be protective. So I think, building service delivery models that include the focus on wholesomeness of water and that are not just focusing on reliability, which is massive and is necessary, but to push beyond that and bring the wholesomeness in as well. I see that as the next step. And it has to be done in a place-based way. So I think it's not going to look the same in every place. It really needs to be something that, again, is negotiated with who is there, the ways of working that are going to work for different contexts, exactly what your institutional structure looks like. But it's going to be hybrid, it's going to be plural. There's a role for many different sectors, organizations, people in different spaces as part of that kind of idea of service delivery.